Hello, thank you for joining us for home worship. Today is Back to School Sunday, and the scripture comes from Proverbs chapter 9, verses 1 through 6. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her animals. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She has sent out her servant girls. She calls from the highest places in town. You that are simple, turn in here. To those without sense, she says, Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. In this chapter, wisdom is personified as a woman. This is where the Bible really gets it right. I say that to some degree in jest, and that I also have to reveal to you that folly or foolishness, wisdom's antithesis, is also personified as a woman in this chapter. This comes later in the chapter as a contrast to the wise woman I just described. The foolish woman doesn't go through all the preparations. She doesn't have the same attention to detail or the gracious invitation. No, her invitation is to all, the same group of people, but she yells, while wisdom wants especially to those who can benefit from her generosity. You that are simple, those without sense, come eat of my bread and drink the wine I have mixed. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. Now, that foolish woman invites the same people to drink stolen water and secret bread. Instead of sending servants out to invite people, she sits there, and in a loud voice outside of her house, she calls out to those who happen to pass by. Do you see the difference? Wisdom is active. She's on the move. She's venturing out. She's finding new horizons, creatively trying to invite people, trying to gather those who need her most. Folly, or foolishness, waits at her door, seated, calling out in a loud voice, and she is idle. Of course, this chapter in Proverbs emphasizes the benefits and importance of education. Appropriate enough for Back to School Sunday, right? The idea here is clear. Preparation and invitation leads to education. This is extremely formative to the Hebrew people and indeed the Judeo-Christian tradition. All religions, in fact, emphasize education of the faith tradition. Islam and Judaism even ask adherents to learn the language. The Quran is most beautiful when read in its original Arabic, and almost every Jew can read or speak at least a little Hebrew, whether it's the Kaddish or the weekly songs or one time in their life at their bar or bat mitzvah. And of course, in the Christian tradition, we have Sunday school. So today, because other faiths emphasize other languages, I'm going to teach you one word, euangelion. Euangelion, literally translated, means good news. And it's commonly translated in our Bible into English into the word gospel. It is the root word, indeed, of our term evangelism. And we should know it. It's our word. Now, wait a minute, preacher, you might say. Are you translating my Bible into another language? The truth is, the people who wrote the Bible did not speak English. Not even the King James Version English. Jesus, Peter, Paul, they didn't write or speak English. Even the people who 700 years later decided on which books would go into the Bible, the canon, none of them spoke English. That's why all of our Bibles that can be read in English are translations from another language. I guess I emphasize this to say that Jesus followers need to be educated in the faith. And sometimes, maybe, we don't do a good enough job of teaching and learning from one another. Sunday school, for most of us, was something we did as children. And all those people out there in our community of Juno Beach or anywhere in the world, those who went to Sunday school as children but are not attending any church. They just feel like they're done with all that. You know those people. You know them. They're the ones we are sitting here in our church yelling at to come inside. But what's more important is, what if those people who are done with religion and church and maybe even God have something to teach us, the pious ones in the pews, every week? If wisdom's house is well built, it behooves us to seek them out with our invitation. And we might not be ready for that. To carry the host metaphor even further, we might not have mixed the wine correctly. We might have not have set the table properly. We might not have slaughtered the right animals in preparation for the feast. We need to get our house together before we invite people out there who are disenchanted with the church and with religion and even some with God. Now, that's where the education comes into play. Why disenchanted? We need to know the answer to these questions. I mean, what's wrong with a little bit of conflict and hypocrisy? But which is more important? Having church the way you like it, or making the house of God a place for all? Extending the invitation. I think we can have both. We may need to set aside ourselves from time to time and definitely pray every day if we need to set aside our harsh judgments. And that's kind of why I preach with edgy and controversial sermon titles sometimes. I know it's been a challenge for some of you, tough to swallow, but ask yourself, ultimately, what about the edgy titles hurts the message of transformation through a relationship with Jesus? At the heart of discontent, it may just be the argument, well, I was just raised this way. And to that I say, okay, try and pray every day if you need to. Don't worry, I have to try and pray too. I do that as well. If I weren't like you, I wouldn't be able to say this. Try and pray every day. Wisdom pushes out into the community with her welcome. Folly sits at her door yelling at passersby. This juxtaposition reminds me of a little book an successful businesswoman once gave me. She's a close friend of my parents, and she's a highly successful automotive dealer. Pretty much every American make of car, besides the lines that are associated with Ford, and she's got multiple dealerships. The book she gave me is entitled Who Moved My Cheese? It's by Spencer Johnson, a physician. If you haven't heard of the story or heard of the book, it's about 4 tiny characters in a maze. 2 are mice and 2 are like tiny humanoids. And they live in the maze. And every day they wake up and go find the cheese. Because they believed this belief. There is cheese out there. You just have to wake up every day and go look for it. Based on that belief, at first, all things were equal. All 4 suited up for a run in the morning and headed out to find the cheese. For a long time, the cheese was in the same place. They all remembered the route. They got there easily every day. The humans, though, with their superior intellect, decided they would build their houses closer to where the cheese was. They moved. And they thought of the cheese as theirs. They were very possessive of it. They considered how impressed others would be by the cheese. They started sleeping in, started wearing slippers instead of running shoes. And eventually, as all things do, the cheese ran out. They consumed all of it. Now, the mice, they had seen this coming. They have simple brains and just instincts, really. So, the day the cheese was missing, they got moving. They wore their sneakers, they sniffed out another cheese station, no problem. Things didn't go so well for the human types, though. They were incensed that the cheese was gone and became fraught with depression and anger. And who moved my cheese? They howled. But they went back to the empty cheese station every day, just thinking that somehow it would reappear. And they got hungrier and sadder. Meanwhile, the mice had gone deeper into the maze and found another station for cheese. It took some work, but they found it. and they survived. But the humans, they hired lawyers to plead their case. They threw tantrums. They suffered from the reality of uncertainty. And eventually, they suffered from starvation. One of them got hungry enough and decided to put his running shoes back on. And with much fear and not a lot of energy, he ventured out to look for more cheese. The lessons of this little book are many, but they're essentially the same as these two women, wisdom and folly or foolishness. One is on the move, anticipating what's ahead. The other is idle. This book is about how we adapt or don't to change. Change is an inevitable fact of life that requires our vigilance, not our complacency. In painstaking ways, the human learned the lessons that instinct would have provided if they would only not think so highly of themselves and be so entitled and stay vigilant. They needed to adapt to the change. When the cheese ran out, the cheese ran out. But they didn't. They needed to anticipate the cheese running out, but they didn't. They felt entitled to the cheese because it had always been there. But one day, when the cheese was gone, their whole belief system, a belief system that they had built based on their experience over time, was challenged. But my question to them is, what about the original belief? There is cheese out there. You just have to wake up every day and go and look for it. It's as if they slowly erased the last bits of that belief so that all that was left was, there is cheese. In the end, one human adapts and the other stays in place, still believing that somehow the cheese will return to the original space. When the other one ventures out, he hopes and prays that his brother will join him, but alas, to no avail. He just disappears. Wisdom makes the proper preparations. She sacrifices her own animals. She mixes her own wine. She is productive and prepared. But folly relies on stolen water and food eaten in secret, which is a metaphor for things done in secret that one ought not to do. And folly also hides the fact that what she offers leads to death, while wisdom's goal is to lead people out of death into life. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. So what are you going to do? Get ready. This is the hellfire and brimstone part. Are you going to sit at the door of your house yelling at people to come in and taste your stolen water? Or are you going to get up every morning, lace up your running shoes, and go find the cheese? Wisdom doesn't just happen to you. It's like cheese in the story, which is also a metaphor for something else. It seems like we have a lot of metaphors this morning. Cheese is the knowledge, is the wisdom. It's something you have to go and get. You want knowledge to improve your life, but you have to seek it out. Will you seek it out? This church offers an opportunity to go deeper in your discipleship by beating down a path of faith ourselves with our own 2 feet. We have a sermon series starting next Sunday with classes that go along with the sermon series. On the topics that we'll be looking at in the sermons, the classes will follow them. Offered twice a week, one class will be at night, and it will discuss the chapter before the sermon is preached. The other class will be in the morning and will be more of a follow-up to what has been presented on Sunday morning in the sermon. They will both focus on the book, We Make the Road by Walking, Tuesday nights and Tuesday mornings. You need to sign up, and I have more books if you're not exactly as Amazon savvy as the rest of us. But here's how it begins, this book, with good news. You are not finished yet. You are still in the making. You have the capacity to learn, mature, think, change, and grow. You also have the freedom to stagnate, regress, constrict, and lose your way. Which road will you take? Does it sound familiar at all? I guess this is an old story. Wisdom and folly, the mice and the humans, the cheese. Will we walk the talk, or sit and yell. The chapters are short in this book, but don't be discouraged. There are pages and pages of Bible readings that are included but only referenced in the book. We will be reading them all. I hope you will consider attending a class for a season or two, for these classes are going to go continually throughout the 52 weeks of the year. I believe there is cheese to be found in this journey together, so I hope you will consider availing yourself of this. The kids are back to school. Isn't it time for us to go back as well? Ask yourself, how important is your education when it comes to your faith? I've got more words in ancient Greek that I can teach you. So will you eat at wisdom's table? And will you conduct yourself in your life as wisdom does? Will you lay aside immaturity and idleness to get up every day and find the cheese? It takes effort. But friends, nothing worth having, including faith, is gained without effort. I hope you will consider continuing your education, no matter what age you are or how much you think you know, because we can all learn and grow from one another. Back to school, guys. Amen.
Hi, I'm Claire, and I go to 3 schools. I go to Miss Winston's class, Miss Pond's class, my class.
Nice.
And I love you. Bye.
I'm Clayton, and I go to the conservatory school, and I play. I don't know. Okay.
Hi, I'm Charlotte, and I go to Bach Middle School of the Arts, and I play the cello.
Hi, my name is Karina Kelly. I'm in 10th grade, and I go to Palm Beach Garden High School.
Hello, my name is Mary McGee, and I'm going to the 9th grade at Baldwin Prep.
Yay!